The sun looked like a glowing coin pressed against the sky when Raul Cedeno left the Rapido Norte warehouse with the first load of the day. He was 48, his arms weathered by dawn shifts, his back already acquainted with every curve of the old mountain road between Valdiva and Puerto Ceniza. His delivery truck wasn't a highway beast. It was a rigid box truck with a faded logo, fickle air conditioning, and a radio that sometimes spat only static. Still, Raul called it Cloud. Because when it roared to life and picked up speed, he felt as if he floated above everything. The debts, the late rent, the unanswered messages from his ex, the silence of a daughter studying far away who every so often sent him a picture of an overpriced coffee with a happy face drawn in the foam. The day promised to be routine: boxes of groceries, jugs of purified water, a couple of small refrigerators for a new shop in the San Lastra hamlet. The yard inspector scanned the list, stamped the waybill, and wished him luck without looking up. Raul fired up Cloud, checked the mirrors, tested the brakes. At 7:16, the city dissolved in his rearview, and the green of the mountains took over, framed by rocky cuts and dry shrubs begging for rain with their pale, dusty leaves. On that road without an official name, the old-timers called it the Knife Line, for how treacherous it was. Vultures were part of the scenery. They drifted in silent circles over the void, guardians of secrets no one wanted to find. Superstitious by nature, Raul honked twice whenever he saw more than 5 together. So the living don't forget you, greet the ones who keep the dead, his grandmother used to say, and he liked to believe such things carried weight. At the imaginary kilometer where an abandoned quarry had carved a pale wound in the mountain, the black circles were tightening, like a shadow undecided. Raul caught it first from the corner of his eye. Then the figure at the roadside sharpened, as if the heat were baking it out of reality. He downshifted from third to second. Cloud groaned in protest. He fixed his eyes on the still shape at the edge of dust and brush. Sometimes trash bags look like people. Sometimes dogs look like trash bags. And every now and then, there are people you pray are dogs. It wasn't a dog. Not trash either. It was a small body in a cotton dress clinging with sweat, dark skin cracked by thirst, and above all, a swollen belly impossible to hide. Raul pulled over a few meters ahead, switched on the hazards, and jumped down. The heat bit through his trousers into his calves. And the silence. That heavy noon silence that makes the blood in your ears audible. "Hey!" he shouted, approaching with hands outstretched. "Miss, can you hear me?" The vultures made another circle, keeping their ancient patience. Raul knelt. The young woman's breathing was shallow, like someone trying to hide even from her own chest. A thin string of saliva stuck to her lower lip. Without thinking, Raul grabbed the small blue bottle from the cup holder. He twisted it open, wet his fingers, and ran them across her cracked lips. Her eyes snapped open, as if the sun had exploded inside them. "Water," she whispered, more breath than voice. "Slowly," he said. "Slowly. Let the body remember first, then receive." He cradled her head gently and lifted the bottle to her mouth. She drank like someone chasing a dream dissolving too fast. Coughed a little, drank again. Raul looked around, the empty road, brush alive with insects, the strip of asphalt reeking of burnt rubber. The radio crackled, then went silent. No cell signal on that stretch, ever since the government promised new towers and left posters where no poles ever rose. "What's your name?" he asked, to keep her present afloat. "Luna," she answered, closing her eyes for a second. "Luna, after my mother." The name struck something big and sad in Raul, maybe a memory of his little girl in the yard playing with a mirror to catch the light. He pushed the thought away. Luna tried to sit up. Her belly tightened under the dress and a grimace carved itself across her forehead. "Do you feel pressure?" he asked, clumsy and blunt. "Since yesterday, but today." She dug her fingers into the dirt, lifted a trembling hand. "They left me here." Raul swallowed hard. He didn't want to ask who, not yet, because the answer was already circling his mind in boots and smoke and harsh laughter. The urgent thing was to get her out of the oven. "I'll take you to the clinic at the crossroads," he improvised. "It's 30 minutes if Cloud behaves. Can you stand?" He helped her gently. Luna tried to put weight on her right heel and let out a short cry. Her feet were swollen, covered in small cuts, the soles black with dirt and asphalt. Raoul lifted her fireman style. Not a tall man, but he knew the trick of using his hip, and carried her to the passenger door. "Hold on to my neck," he told her. "When I say, swing one leg up, then the other. Nobody stays lying here." Luna obeyed more from will than strength. Once she was seated, Raoul fastened the seatbelt and tucked a back cushion beneath her belly. He tried the AC. The fan coughed twice and spat a thin warm breeze, but at least it moved the air. He climbed behind the wheel, put it in first. "Stay with me, okay?" he asked, flashing a smile he wasn't sure was for her or himself. "Your name's Luna. That means you know how to come out of the dark." They rolled forward. Cloud roared gratefully to be back in the game of asphalt. Raoul, one hand on the wheel and the other sometimes on the seat back, talked to keep her awake, about the tricky curve where the slope deceives you, about the warehouse where loaders grilled meat on old cans, about the customer who always asked for the water jug that doesn't squeal, as if water could complain. Luna listened, her gaze fixed on the windshield. "How many months?" he asked quietly. "I don't count months," she said. "I just know sometimes it moves like it wants to come out on its own, and other times it stays still like it listens to me. Today it moves a lot." Raoul nodded. In the rear view, he caught another flock of vultures trailing the canyon's edge. He pressed the accelerator. "Do you have someone I can call?" he insisted. "When we get there, I can ask for a landline at reception." Luna took her time. "I have myself," she said finally. "And her." Raoul thought about the name of his truck, about how ridiculous it was to baptize metal, about how maybe we name things so we don't forget. He wanted to ask something else, but a jolt from Cloud and a heavy thud forced them to focus. Something had been thrown down, a metal triangle punctured by a spike. The front right tire started flirting with the rim. "Not now," he muttered, stroking the dashboard like a skittish horse. "Hold on, sweetheart." He searched for a clearing, spotted the mouth of a dirt track ending in low scrub. He steered carefully, pulled over under the meager shade of a mesquite. In silence, he opened the glove box and took out a small toolkit. He turned to Luna. "I'm going to change the tire," he said. "I'll put this bottle here. Sip it slowly. If you feel anything that scares you, yell. I'll be 1 meter away." Luna nodded, her forehead beaded with sweat. Raoul jumped down. The asphalt radiated like a stove. The jack's iron threatened to scorch his palms. He worked quickly, like someone who'd done this 100 times, but his mind was elsewhere, scanning for small sounds. Insects, leaves, the distant murmur of an engine. Then he heard something else, branches snapping in the brush above, like footsteps moving in restrained haste. He froze. There was no wind. 2 more steps, then silence. Raoul slid his body under the truck's chassis to feign focus, his hand groping for the tire iron like it was a talisman. The engine's growl grew louder. It wasn't on the main road but on that dirt track. In the side mirror, he caught the glint of a chrome grille. A double-cab pickup, windshield filthy, license plate smeared with mud on purpose. He took a deep breath. His world had always been about delivering, finishing the route, dodging potholes, not facing men who drove like laws didn't exist. But he'd already crossed the threshold the moment he lifted Luna off the dust. Stepping aside wasn't an option. The pickup stopped behind Cloud. 2 men got out the way people get out to use the bathroom, unhurried, certain no one would dare knock. One was broad-shouldered, a tattoo creeping up his neck. The other had a patchy beard and a clenched jaw. Not a word. The broad one spat to the side. The bearded one stepped closer to the cab. "Good morning, boss," the bearded man finally said, his courtesy sounding like plastic. "Everything all right?" Raoul straightened up, resting the lug wrench against his thigh. "Flat tire," he answered, curt. The bearded one tilted his head, measuring more than just a tire. "Traveling alone?" "With cargo and in a hurry." Raoul kept his eyes fixed on the metal rim, as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. The broad-shouldered man strolled toward the passenger side. His eyes lingered on the window. Luna saw him, and fear lifted her chin slightly, like she was offering her throat. The man smiled slowly. Nice load you've got there.
And her?
Customer or package? Raoul's blood froze, but what came out was a short, fake laugh. My sister. He picked the lie with the fewest splinters. She got dizzy. She's full term. I'm dropping her off at the crossroads. The bearded one weighed the air. Funny you just happened to pick her up here. Funny you just happened to stop here, Raoul shot back, and regretted it instantly. If the road had taught him anything, it was that sarcasm with men who had stone eyes was like waving a red cloth. The broad one stepped closer, knocking his knuckles against the metal panel as if to test its give. Relax, driver, he said. We're just watching over the area. Lately, strange things have been happening. Trucks disappearing, routes changing. We like to make sure nothing gets lost, you know. Raoul swallowed. That word, routes, wasn't from a curious passerby. It was from someone who managed them in the plural, as a trade. Thanks for the concern, he replied. If you want to help, hand me that four-way wrench. The bearded man chuckled, the kind of laugh you give to a joke not worth applause but worth complicity. The broad one leaned closer to Luna's window. What's your name, pretty? Luna kept her eyes forward. She's not talking to you, Raoul said. Leave her alone. The phrase made an invisible noise in the air. The bearded one dropped the act. He took 2 steps, boots crunching on gravel. Listen, Mr. Delivery, he said, and now the courtesy had an edge. If you're carrying something you shouldn't, you make trouble for everyone. And if you're carrying someone you shouldn't, same thing. Understand? Raoul's fingers were slick with sweat on the wrench. He thought of saying, I'm nobody, I saw nothing, move along. But then he caught Luna's reflection in the side mirror. Lips pressed tight, a whole life packed into a belly begging to come out. I deliver food and appliances, he said. Anything else isn't my business. A short silence. The broad one crouched, trying to get a better look inside. Then Luna spoke, and she didn't even know where her voice came from. Please, she said. It hurts. The bearded one raised his eyebrows. The broad man stepped back at once, uneasy. Not out of pity, but because someone else's pain had reminded him of his humanity, and humanity is a nuisance in certain trades. Let's go, the bearded one spat, like tossing out a seed. They'll deal with it at the crossroads. The broad one hesitated for a beat, then shrugged. They climbed back into their pickup, and gravel crunched again. Raoul breathed for the first time in a minute. He finished changing the tire with hands trembling more from what hadn't happened than from the heat. He climbed into Cloud, glanced at Luna. Almost there, he said, this time with a smile that came from an honest place. See? Even bad days back down if you stare them down. She nodded. And then the contraction hit like a wave that asks no permission. Luna folded in on herself, a guttural cry shaking her stomach. Raoul went pale. Breathe with me, okay? He urged, setting the rhythm. In for 4, out for 6. That's it. That's it. We're close. Cloud devoured the last stretch to the crossroads. The health clinic, a block building painted with good intentions and little budget, finally appeared like a faint miracle. Raoul parked at the entrance, gave a short, steady honk. 2 nurses rushed out pushing a gurney. The older one, hair pulled back, strong arms, took charge immediately. How long has she been having contractions? She asked without breaking stride. Since this morning, Raoul said. Since yesterday, Luna corrected, wincing. Inside, ordered the nurse. You, driver, come sign the intake. Are you family? Raoul hesitated, the kind of hesitation before jumping a puddle. Yes, he said. I'm her uncle. The nurse peered at him over her glasses. She saw the lie, but she also saw the urgency. She gave a brief nod. Inside, the artificial cool smelled of chlorine and resolve. A young guard in a vest tried to ask for documents. The head nurse nudged him aside with her elbow. Papers later. For now, water, for blood pressure, Doppler. Move. Raoul scrawled his name on a form in elementary school handwriting. Responsible relative, R. Sedino. When he stepped out of the little office, he caught a glimpse of Luna being wheeled toward a room. He walked behind but didn't dare cross the yellow line. He thought about sitting on the metal bench, but his body chose to stay standing, as if lowering his guard would make the world collapse. 15 minutes dragged by like a suspension bridge over a void. The ceiling fan turned, its hum reminding him of mosquitoes. An old sign on the wall asked for blanket donations for newborns. Out of habit, Raoul pulled out his phone. No signal. He put it away and, on impulse, went to the coffee machine. He dropped in a coin. The machine swallowed it and blinked out of service. He gave a weary smile. Even machines know when you're short. The head nurse finally emerged. She rubbed her hands with sanitizer and looked at him with a mix of authority and humanity. "She's in labor," she said. "We don't know how long it'll take. She's dehydrated, but she responded well to fluids. Do you know how many prenatal checkups she had?" Raoul shook his head. "I see," the nurse said. "We'll need you to stay available. And," she lowered her voice a notch, "if you're the one who brought her, be aware that people might come asking. It happens sometimes." Raoul straightened. "What people?" "The kind we don't want inside." Her eyes locked on his, unadorned. "The road brings all sorts. And a young girl, left alone, attracts those who think they own other people's bodies." Raoul nodded, feeling the phantom weight of the lug wrench still in his hand. "If they come, no one gets in without my say," she added. "And I've got 2 orderlies who don't shy away from arguments. But keep your eyes open." He wanted to thank her, and what came out instead was, "Thank you for not asking too many questions." "There'll be time to ask the ones that matter," she said, and slipped back through the door. Left alone again with the drone of the fan, Raoul let the adrenaline drop a notch. The tension pulled back the memory of the pickup and the 2 men. Lately strange things have been happening. Routes, trucks disappearing. His mind clicked, like a thunderclap waiting for an excuse. He remembered something overheard at the warehouse, the supervisor whispering to the yard manager not to post the weekend beer shipments, Faro Del Mar, in the group chat. Move them along the river line, no GPS, nothing in the system. Raoul had half listened at the time, like tuning in to a familiar song. Now the melody felt darker. What if Luna's appearance hadn't been chance? What if the watched stretch of road was marked for something bigger? What if the same people who left her on the roadside were the ones setting the trap? What secrets hide behind a normal delivery route, and why would someone leave a pregnant woman as bait in the middle of nowhere? Stay until the end and subscribe, because these pieces are going to fit together where you least expect it. An hour later, time had lost its name. Raoul paced the hallway now and then to trick his restlessness. He saw 2 older women arrive with plastic bags, a teenager with his arm in a sling, and a man clutching an envelope of X-rays like treasure. Every life was its own highway, and that corridor was a crossroads where they brushed past each other without looking. His phone vibrated unexpectedly. Fleeting signal, a single starving bar. A message landed and stuck like a fly in honey. "Raoul, it's Elias from the warehouse. Where are you? The supervisor's asking for you. Urgent." Then another line. "They say there was an incident with a Faro Del Mar truck last night. All today's runs are delayed. Don't head for the coast. Everything okay?" The signal died again, as if the tower had regretted picking up. Raoul put the phone away, his stomach tight. Last night. Faro Del March. If they called it a mishap, in warehouse slang that could mean anything from a blown tire to an armed robbery. He pressed his lips together, unsure whether to alert someone, and to whom. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't a hero. He was just a driver with 2 hands and a truck. The head nurse came out again, this time with a different light in her eyes, the mix of fatigue and tenderness that only appears when a newborn's cry slips under the doors. "She's doing well," she announced. "It's not over yet, but she's doing well. If you want to see her, you can take a quick look without crossing the line." Raoul nodded, not trusting his own voice. He walked up to the yellow line and looked in. Luna was lying back, eyes squeezed shut, hair plastered to her forehead. A young resident whispered in her ear, guiding her breathing. Another nurse held her hand. Luna opened her eyes for a second and fixed them on Raoul. There was no reproach, no plea, only recognition, as if finding a familiar face in chaos was a vessel of calm. He raised his thumb awkwardly. She grimaced, maybe a smile. The moment tore open with the slam of doors. Raoul turned his head. Two men in caps and dark glasses walked through the lobby, scanning the room like they were hunting for a misplaced package. One had the kind of belly that comes from beer without labor. The other, a stiff neck. They weren't staff, and they weren't family. They were the kind of men who ask too many questions. The young security guard stepped in front of them with more courage than experience. "Gentlemen," he said, "who are you here for?" "No one in particular," the heavy-set one replied. "We're visiting a lady." "Name?" demanded the guard. "We don't ask names in places where we're already known." The stiff-necked man smiled without teeth. Raoul felt his skin rise. The head nurse appeared again, hands on her hips, radiating the authority of someone who had learned to set limits to save lives. "This isn't a marketplace," she said. "Visitors outside, patients inside. No names, no entry. The door is right behind you." The heavy-set man shifted his weight, torn between pushing or backing off. The stiff-necked one sharpened his grin. "We just want to check if someone is all right." "Then pray," the nurse shot back, "and let us work." The guard stiffened his stance. Without realizing it, Raoul had taken 2 steps toward them. He didn't know what he would say if they looked at him. His hands were trembling again, but not from the heat this time. The heavy-set man studied the scene, pushed his tongue into his cheek, and for some reason, maybe the fire in the nurse's eyes, maybe the weakness of asking without a name, he decided to retreat. "Fine," he said. "We'll be back later." Raoul knew later was a promise. And the promise would be less polite if they returned with more men. He went back to the bench. In his head, the pieces shuffled, trying to form a picture. When everything finally erupted, it did so the way everyday things explode, with a ringing bell and a simple phrase. Reception called him by his supposed kinship. "Relative of patient Luna?" asked a voice. "Yes," he answered, heart in his throat. "She's going into the delivery room," the voice said. "If anyone wants to be there, speak now." Raoul saw himself from outside, nodding, breathing, nodding again. He crossed the yellow line for the first time, in a poorly tied gown they handed him at the door. Luna looked at him and gripped his hand with a force that left no room for speeches. "Don't let go," she said. "Wouldn't even if I wanted to," he replied. And then the world shrank to a rhythm, the resident's steady count, Luna's grip and release, Raoul counting numbers like telephone poles to keep from getting lost in the night. Somewhere outside, vultures traced their black geometry. Elsewhere, a van without GPS crossed a wooden bridge, its cargo of bottles rattling like discreet bells. Inside the room, a heartbeat galloped through the Doppler. "Strong," someone said. "Keep going," said another. Minutes, hours, stretches no one measures the same, passed before the new cry spilled into the air, perfect and fierce. Raoul, who had delivered blenders and microwaves from their boxes, now saw life delivered from a body, and realized he had never carried anything so fragile and essential. His legs shook. He smiled and cried without shame. Luna, exhausted, smiled too. They looked at each other. No kinship in the world could explain that pact. "Name?" asked the young nurse, holding the chart. Luna looked at her daughter, then at Raoul. "Brisa," she said, "because she came when everything was burning, and still she refreshed us." Raoul swallowed whatever words had almost escaped. He nodded, the kind of nod you give when you understand a metaphor that needs no explanation. The peace lasted only as long as beautiful things last when they belong to the street. Long enough to remember forever, just enough to hurt when it's gone. Outside, the bell rang again. The young guard answered. Whatever the voice said drained the color from his face. He ran for the head nurse. She entered the room with a neutral, professional face, but her eyes burned. "I need you to stay inside," she said, and it wasn't a suggestion. "We're locking the doors. No one comes in." "What's happening?" Raoul asked, already feeling that later choking his chest. "A truck just pulled up," she said. "They're asking for the girl from the road. And they don't look like the kind to take no for an answer." Raoul looked at Luna. She clutched Brisa against her chest with a mix of love and terror. The silence lasted 2 breaths. Then Raoul, a man who had spent his life meeting schedules and routes, said, "If they come in, they're looking for me." The nurse studied him, weighing everything she saw. She saw the man who had carried a stranger, who lied to avoid questions, who knew there are things you don't deliver because they don't belong to anyone. Bodies, choices, futures. "No one's getting in," she said at last. "But if they do, they get through me first." The doors were secured. The hallway emptied. From outside, the low rumble of harsh voices pressed against the walls like a wave rehearsing its strike. Raoul tightened the knot on his gown and drew a breath. The clinic's radio crackled. Someone called the police post at the crossroads. Someone said they're on the way. Someone else said they'll be late. The head nurse took her place behind the counter like a ship's captain, upright, papers in order. The young guard swallowed hard but held his ground. The 2 orderlies exchanged a glance, then stationed themselves at either end of the hall, arms crossed, standing wide. The heavy-set man and the stiff-necked one came in like men who think the world owes them answers. This time, they weren't alone. A third, younger, with a scar under his eye, closed the door behind them. A fourth stayed by the entrance, watching the street. The heavy-set one smiled like a door-to-door salesman. "Good afternoon. We're looking for someone. We heard she might be here." "This is a clinic," the nurse cut in. "Patients only. Unless you've got a full name, ID, or an emergency, the exit's right behind you." The stiff-necked one leaned on the counter, too close, his hands carrying the smell of old gunpowder, of violence barely restrained. "We're problem solvers," he said. "We don't want trouble. It's hot outside. Inside, it's cooler. Everyone's happy if we just speak plainly, right?" "The only thing plain here," she shot back, "is that you don't give orders. Step back from the line." "The girl from the road?" The heavy-set one pressed, still smiling. "We just want to make sure she's all right." "Since when does the desert send representatives?" the nurse retorted. The young guard hid a nervous smile behind his hand. The scarred man toyed with a set of car keys, metal on metal marking the rhythm of dwindling patience. The fourth man by the door scanned the street like he was measuring whether it was worth going in or backing out. Raoul listened from the delivery room, Luna's hand clamped to his. Brisa slept peacefully, mouth rooting even in dreams. The words reached him muffled, but their meaning cut through the walls sharp as a blade. He scanned the room, an instrument table, a folding chair, a small window with a screen. He mapped distances as if it were a delivery route. Noob was outside, 10 steps from the door, loaded with useful and useless cargo alike. The lug wrench, a reflective vest, a thermal blanket, a fire extinguisher. "If I have to run, I'll run," he muttered, not realizing he'd said it aloud. "You won't run," Luna whispered. "If you run, you take me with you." Raoul looked at her. In her eyes he found a strange mirror, someone who expected nothing, and precisely because of that, dared to ask for everything. He nodded, sealing yet another unwritten pact. The old loudspeaker in the lobby, an antique that sometimes switched on by itself, crackled and spat out a metallic voice. "Please remain calm." No one had pressed the button. Sometimes machines know exactly what to say. Outside, a thin siren began to wail in the distance. Patrol from the crossroads, Raoul thought. 2 men, maybe 3. Too far. Too slow. Inside, tension stretched the seconds thin. The heavy-set man stepped 2 paces toward the yellow line and stopped. The stiff-necked one opened his mouth to spit out words that could turn the room into something else entirely. The head nurse fixed him with the gaze of someone who had ushered both life and death into the world, and she spoke before he could. "Anyone who comes here fights to live. Anyone who comes to take, leaves." The scarred man tossed his keys in the air, caught them without looking. The metal's ring hung like a beat. The stiff-necked one finally dropped the phrase he'd been rolling on his tongue. "The road doesn't forget." "Neither do the people," the nurse answered. The sirens, now closer, turned the corner. The fourth man hissed a warning. Eyes darted quick calculations. Storm in or back out. They weren't heroes. They were messengers for someone who stayed clean unless there was no other choice. And tonight, there was no need. The heavy-set man raised his hands theatrically. "We'll be back," he said. And once again, the word carried a debt. Raoul exhaled but did not loosen his grip. Minutes later, a pair of uniformed officers came in, took notes on faces and plates, promised patrols. Then they left. Normalcy slipped its gown back on, but it no longer fit. Luna slept for the first time in 2 days, Brisa anchored to her chest. Raoul stepped into the parking lot to stretch his back. The sun was dropping, the asphalt losing its boil. Noob, paint peeling, looked like a tired beast. Raoul pressed his forehead to the cab's edge. In that brief rest, his phone buzzed again. New signal. New message. Unknown number. He hesitated. Answered. "Mr. Cedeno," said a voice that wasn't from the warehouse, nor any friend. "This is Letitia Vero, Route Security Coordination. We were told you were on the upper stretch this morning. I need to ask you about 2 men hanging around there. And if you'll allow me, about a rumor, that tomorrow night someone's planning to lift a Ferro del Mar container by the river. Does that ring a bell?" Raoul closed his eyes for a second. The puzzle pieces clicked into place, drawn together as if by a magnet. "It rings a bell," he said. "And I've got more to tell you. But first," he looked toward the clinic doors, "I need you to promise me one thing." "I'm listening," the woman replied. "That no one," Raoul said firmly, "no one takes the girl I brought here. Or her baby. If there's a safe route, it'll be ours." On the other end of the line, the silence weighed like either a promise or a well-spoken lie. "I promise," Letitia finally said. "And, Mr. Cedeno, thank you for stopping." Raoul hung up, took a long breath. Then he opened Noob's cargo box, pulled out the lug wrench, the fire extinguisher, the safety vest. He stacked them by the door. He didn't yet know how to fight a shadow with vulture wings and truck's teeth. But he knew this. There are deliveries that don't fit on a manifest. There are drop-offs not signed in ink, but in skin, sweat, fear, and resolve. He went back inside. The head nurse raised an eyebrow at him. "Leaving?" "No," Raoul said. "I'm staying tonight." Night fell the way things do when you have no say, suddenly and in silence. In the hall, the cold lights lit a world of pale blues. In the room, Luna breathed easier and Brisa dreamed of a world without heat. Outside, the road dozed but kept the knife under its pillow. Somewhere on the coast, men who believed the roads were theirs laid plans with sloppy maps, crude jokes, and synchronized watches. They decided that by the river at 11 at night, a truck carrying Ferro del Mar beer would be diverted without anyone noticing. They toasted without toasting. Raoul, who that same morning only wanted to finish his deliveries, realized that by dawn he would have to do something he'd never done before, go off-route on purpose. Not for the company. Not for the warehouse. For Luna. For Brisa. For himself, now that he finally had a route that cut through him, and one he wasn't willing to lose. If you knew an ambush was being set on your own route, would you step aside, or step in, even if it cost you everything? Stay until the end and subscribe. The move about to be played could save or condemn those you've just met. The glass windows glowed with early dawn when Letitia showed up with coffee and a map. She asked me to get in Noob because, if we're going into the road, better to go with the road's own face. On paper she marked the old bridge and a gravel turn by the river. She didn't promise miracles, only minutes. And sometimes minutes save lives. We hid behind scrub and watched trucks of beer roll by as if nothing, until one appeared with a green tarp, a bad disguise. A drone swooped down, the driver glanced up, and 2 motorcycles boxed him in. A runner lifted the tarp, and they shoved out long, heavy bundles, with muffled cries. Not just contraband. People. My blood turned. Letitia muttered, "We can't just watch," and I felt Noob asking for the road. I cut the sharpest curve and threw the truck across the lane like it had overheated. I put out a triangle, grabbed the extinguisher, wore the face of a driver in trouble. The pickup braked right in front. "Move it, old man," they shouted. Letitia stood tall and barked with authority. Route coordination. Spill on the road, nobody passes. They hesitated just long enough to lose 10 minutes. When they finally detoured up the ridge, we slipped underneath toward the mills, where they usually stored. They arrived panting, opened the tarp, and rolled 3 human bundles onto the ground. A distant ally ambulance wailed, and the scene fractured. Letitia cut a rope, I blocked the exit with Noob, the boys ran for cover. The men chose not to shoot and left with promises to return. Paramedics picked up the kids, and that's when I first heard the nickname that would stick to me, the Commissioner. He stepped out of a white SUV, clean shoes in dirty soil, a toothless smile. "The road never forgets," he said, as if blessing a funeral. He didn't answer my, "Who are you?" He didn't need to. We returned to the clinic. Tyr, captain of that ship with tired ceiling fans, welcomed us with the calm of someone who has seen too many storms. Luna held Brisa to her chest and looked at me with one question. "Did you come back?" I told her yes, and that we'd be moving that same night. Letitia activated her favor inventory. A workshop gate that opened like a magic trick, a neighbor with a remote hidden in a brick, Don Roque and his dog Churamino stopping a pursuing sedan. We hid Luna and the baby in the cargo box with blankets, took the gravel road, and when they tried to catch us again, we were already slipping out through a door that doesn't exist on any map. "Today we bought time," Letitia said. "Tomorrow, papers." At sunrise, we went to the registry. The clerk looked at us like you look at people bringing truths too early, then stamped the certificate, Brisa Sedino Luna. That last name landed on me like a precious weight. I'm not her father, I thought, but I'll be here. In the brick house where we hid, the owner served us tea and Letitia dealt out plans. Birth certificate, hospital discharge, a fake rental, twin routes with a duplicate Noob to confuse them. That night, a friendly truck, painted in haste, became our mirror. The sedan chased the noise, while I, on another street, delivered Luna and Brisa to a blue room where the soap smelled of new life. If you knew the enemy smiled in photos and handed out gift boxes with bows, would you stay silent so they wouldn't see you, or speak out even if it painted a target on your back? Stay until the end and subscribe. The next move will be played in public. The Commissioner donated a fair in the plaza. Letitia and I went in plain clothes. She with a popsicle, Tyr with gum and dignity. That's when we saw her. Marla in a light dress and dark glasses, clapping less than the rest. The one who had accompanied Luna before abandoning her. She smiled as she handed churros to a child, and I knew that pretty doorway led to the same dark corridor. We didn't follow her that day. We chose instead to tear her act apart afterward. We called for a recognition lunch, and walked in from the side with the truth. The rescued boys told just enough. Tyr spoke of who enters and who doesn't in her hospital. The registry clerk lifted a document like a shield, and I said the only thing I could, that I stopped because I couldn't keep going, that ribbons don't hide shame, and that delivering without meeting eyes is delivering emptiness. Marla listened without smiling and offered me coffee in a low voice. I answered that my second life gets hungry every 3 hours and won't fit in her cups. The pressure returned, a door ripped off Noob by accident, an anonymous photo of us at the mill with "Nice team" scrawled on the back. Letitia wanted it framed, so we remember we're not invisible. I crossed paths with Marla on a corner. "You're better than this," she said. "Work with me, earn more." I told her I'd already earned what can't be bought, a name on a paper and the right to honk at the vultures without lowering my eyes. Her smile slipped. When the Commissioner finally came to the warehouse, he spoke without a mic. "I can't kill you, because the people are watching. I can't buy you, because you carry no label. Leave me my routes, and I'll let you breathe." Tyr appeared as if rehearsed. "The people don't choose their bread. They choose not to starve. And we'll be there when they decide." There was no deal. No surrender. Just what fits in a hallway. Two ways of seeing the road, measuring each other's pulse. Since then, we've kept delivering real food to neighborhoods without cameras, saving minutes where lives used to be lost. Luna and Brisa sleep with their window open to a town you won't find on Google. Tears sweeps away threats with the same broom she uses to keep the shifts in order. Letitia collects favors like someone stocking matches for winter, and I patch up noob scars with wire and faith. The city didn't change overnight, but now it knows another road. The one drawn by a delivery man who stopped, a nurse who said no, a clerk who stamped a last name, and a baby who breathes as if every dawn were the first in the world. When I pass by the river, I honk twice. The vultures keep circling, indifferent, and I keep to my own circle with one certainty. I'm no hero, I'm a delivery man. But when the road asks you to be a bridge, you become a bridge. And across that bridge, no one walks alone anymore.